Hey guys, I hope all is well. Gary here from Triage Method. Today what we're going to do is try to answer a question, okay? Very simple thing, but this is sort of an entry point into starting to read research, okay? So one of the things we're seriously big into at Triage is trying to empower people to help themselves, to make their own lives better. And part of that is, self-education and educating yourself on the things that you're interested in and the things that are important for your health. And this is particularly important if you are a personal trainer, okay? You're going to be asked questions all the time, and you're going to be asking yourself questions all of the time. You're going to see other people talking about things that you may not understand. So you need to know how to answer a question using useful resources. So using the research evidence, using experiments that have been done to answer the questions that you're interested in. So that is ultimately a skill that you need to develop over time. That is, a process. It's not the case that once you've watched this one video, or even 5 videos or 10 videos, that you'll understand all the nuances of reading research. I think a lot of people get, especially personal trainers, because maybe a lot of personal trainers don't have a background in a degree, like a degree program or the sciences or whatever. It can be pretty intimidating. They often think that, oh, this isn't for me, I can't read research. Whereas you absolutely can. Like people in college that are studying the sciences, they have trouble reading this stuff as well at the beginning, but you just have to begin to develop those skills over time. When I was early on in my degree, I used to find this stuff really intimidating. You're reading research and you're like, what's all this statistical jargon? Like, you skip over the method section because it's too boring. All that stuff, And when you start off, you're looking at abstracts and you're going to the conclusion straight away and you're taking lots from the introduction, and that's totally fine, because once you begin to do it more and more over time, you ask more questions, you realize what you don't know, you seek out help from others, and you'll begin to develop these skills. So today is just an entry point into how to actually search a database for an answer to your question, like really simple search. So what we're going to use is a database called PubMed. So PubMed is quite useful for lots of things related to medicine and health and even exercise science, physiotherapy, etc. So it's a useful one to kind of start off with. You could also use Google Scholar, which is another very popular resource, but let's just go for PubMed because I think that's the one that people talk about the most, at least from what I've seen. So what we're going to do is pop in PubMed into our Google bar or whatever you prefer, and then you're going to be met with this page, okay? And up the top there's a search bar, so you can do more advanced searches, but today what we're going to do is a very basic search, okay? So the question that we're going to try and answer is, like, is resistance training volume important for health? So this is just a random question that I kind of thought up of because it's a general thing that you'll understand and that's relatable. So the reason, you might ask this question is maybe it's the case that you're coaching clients in the gym, or you're concerned for yourself. You think that, oh, I should be really conservative and have a low dose of weight training because maybe if I do more, I'll get less benefits for health, or it won't be good for my health, it might be dangerous or whatever. So this might be, something you're interested in. So we're not debating the nuances of volume or trying to worry about definitions too much. We're just trying to use this as a sample question for the purpose of this video. So what we might do here then is put in our terms that we're interested in, so our search terms. So a very simple way of doing this is to put it in inverted commas. So resistance training, that's one. Then put in and, because we want to include all of these things. So the studies that we're searching for, we want all of our terms to be included. So resistance training and volume. You could put in, training volume, or maybe it might be the case that strength training is better. You can play around with your terms over time. And health. So very simple. What that is going to do for us then is search, and because the and is in there, it's going to search for studies that include those terms together, okay? And then we just search. A very simple, basic search. And we get a number of studies that appear. Okay, so we've got 75 search results here. Depending on the question that you ask, you might have a ridiculous amount of search results that come up, and it might be too much. So sometimes you have to narrow it down. And you'll see, because of my previous searches, I've got review here ticked, so it's filtered to show me only review papers. And what a review paper is a type of paper where the researchers will take lots of different studies in an area, pool them together to try and get a consensus on what the overall body of evidence says about a topic. So those types of studies are particularly useful if you're trying to get a general overview of the research evidence. Okay, so what you'll see is that we've got a number of studies that have kind of shown themselves up. So benefits of resistance training in physically frail elderly, a systematic review. That might be something you were interested in with this question if you were interested in more elderly individuals. But because that's not, let's say, my population of interest, if I was answering the question for myself, I'd want to look for other studies. So that's why it's important to consider the actual population as well when you're thinking about answering these questions. So we scroll down. Do we have anything that we're interested in? Repetition duration, not quite for this question. Okay, cool. We might clear this filter and see how that changes our results. Oh, there we go. The Figueiredo paper. This is like a recent paper on this actual question. You'll see that when we took away that review classification on the left-hand side here, what happened was we actually had 534 results for this question. Okay, so now we have a broader search because we haven't filtered it based on the type of study. So that's actually quite a relevant paper, and that was what came up first. So that includes all of our search terms, and it's probably the most relevant study for given what we're interested in. So then what you'll do is you'll come to this page where the study is, and then this is where people encounter problems. Okay, where people encounter problems here is that you don't have access if you're not a member of a university. So if you're a member of a university, if you're a student at a university rather, you'll probably have access to a lot of these full texts. Okay, so this is just what's called an abstract. So an abstract is just a summary of the study. So it doesn't tell you all the details of the study, it doesn't tell you what they did. Well, it might, but it doesn't give you the full study breakdown, which you'll actually want. So what you then have to do is you have to go to those full text links and log in via your institution if you're a student. If you're not a student, then there is a loophole using Sci-Hub. Okay, I'm not sure if it is legal to make a video about this, but this is what you do. So you copy this DOI number here. You put in your search bar Sci-Hub, sci-hub.tw. Paste in your DOI, enter. You'll just have to clear this bit. Bungee. And then you get your full research paper. Okay, so then you get some of the details of the study. Like, this isn't an actual independent trial, it's more of a review paper. So one of those review papers we talked about where they look over the evidence as a whole. Some papers are just like some papers are systematic reviews where there's a systematic process of searching the research. Some papers actually have meta-analyses, which is a statistical method of essentially pooling all the results together and seeing what the average is, you could say. So when you come into a paper like this, then you have different sections depending on the actual study. Generally, what studies will contain is like an introduction, methods, results, discussion, conclusions. Okay, that's the general flow. But if you have a review paper like this, you mightn't actually have this. You might just have these different sections that they're discussing, where it's more like a narrative review. They put things under different headings and discuss them like that. Okay, so like that's what one would consider to be an atypical study. So it's more like an opinion paper, an editorial, than an overall review. So you're trying to get a shorter paper that is essentially giving you the consensus based on what those authors have found. So this isn't what most studies will look like, but this isn't exactly the purpose of the video. The main purpose of the video is to show you how to search for research. Okay, so you're searching for your research. You can essentially filter then based on the left-hand side. So if you just wanted to get studies from the last 10 years, you do publication dates, click 10 years. Some depending on if you're in university, say, some lecturers might say to you, I only want the evidence for the last 5 years, so you go to the last 5 years. Or maybe it's the case that you're already seasoned in reading research and you know all the evidence from, let's say, up until 2 years ago, so you want to look at the more recent evidence in the last 2 years. So they're the types of things that you can do. And if it's the case that you just want to look at the papers that have free full text, let's clear the 5 years thing. Text availability here as well, and then you say free full text. And then you'll see the papers that have what are called, they're on the PMC, so free PMC article. What that means is that when you actually go into it, you'll generally have this section here, PMC full text, and that's actually open access, so you can actually just access that without a university subscription. If that lets you down, you can use Sci-Hub, okay? Again, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that on a video. Maybe I'll ask Paddy, but there you go. Like that's what we use to search for research, because that essentially takes away the barrier of having to pay for papers, which most people will agree is not a very effective way of trying to communicate science if it's all behind a paywall. So yeah, Sci-Hub is there, and some open access links will be available. More and more papers these days are becoming open access. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully that is helpful, guys. Hopefully you got something out of that and you have an idea of how to search for research. Even if it's just the case that, I now know what PubMed is, I know how to put in a couple of search terms, and I know how to do a couple of filters. That wasn't an extensive overview by any means. This is just an introductory kind of part 1 video. And if you have additional questions, we can definitely go into more detail. As you can see, like, you can do advanced searches where you can essentially build your search terms, build up your questions, and save your questions as well. And then you'll see that because I've already searched for them, I've got all these searches saved, so I can come back to them once you if you sign in, and you can save papers, etc. So there's lots more to it, but let's not worry too much about that for now. Let's just worry about doing that basic search. Let me know how you get on. Let me know if you have questions, and of course, feel free to drop them down below.